if you wanted to say like diversity is our strength, right? Like you were talking about like, oh well, we're going to defend our Muslim immigrants because they're basically brain drain immigrants, right? Like they're all like highly educated, top tier people, right? Like I'm not a huge fan of that, but like you could make like a diversity is our strength argument, not really our strength, but like you want to grow up in like a 95% white area, but then like one of the kids in school is like a weird skin color, and you go up to him like, "Ew, why do you fucking look like that?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm actually Muslim." And like you can like learn about that, and then like you grow up and you're like, "Oh yeah, I had this weird brown single friend in this
And
like
it's
huge
nice
majority white
it's
area."
nice for the novelty, just for like,
Yes. Yeah, maybe there's like a few of them. And again, since they're all top tier, they're all highly educated, the parents are making bank, yeah, they're like surgeons or lawyers or whatever. They're like basically culturally white, right? Because they're just like acclimated. They're not bringing like this like base kind of culture or whatever. And not even, like even American low class, like drugs and stuff, but they're also not like, hanging chickens in storefronts and shit. Like they're not bringing their actual like street level culture. They're basically just living in like suburban houses, but then they're like brown. It's like, you can have like one or two of them. And it's like, that's, I feel like what people meant in like the 90s. In like the year 2000, I feel like that's kind of what people meant when they would like talk about like diversity being good. They're like, oh yeah, you get to go up to that guy and be like, oh, why are your eyes like that? And he could be like, well, like I'm fucking Asian, and like that's how our eyes look. And you could be like, oh, that's terrible. All of them look like. And then he shows you like the zoo books with like Asian people in it and shit. And then you go home and play Street Fighter, and you're like, oh, I guess their eyes look like that too. And then it's like cool. It's like you learn. Yeah, it's like a World's Fair. It's a small world
it's like
kind of thing. You know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. But it's like fine. That's like not like the worst. That's what I mean. Like, am I a fan of that? Like, no, maybe okay, it's 95% white, make it 100% white, whatever. We'll call it, that's fine. But it's like not the worst thing in the world, right? Because then your kid is like, he knows a little bit, and then your kid can come to you and go, like, oh, this other my fellow student is this weird off-putting color, and I asked them what it was, and then you can kneel down and go, exactly, son, you're part of the Aryan white race. You are a god among the peons. Like and you should ask him. You should say, how does it feel?
Yeah, having some inferior people around.
Yeah, like how does it? Yeah, you just tussle his hair. Like, how does it feel to live in Elysium where the lessers are begging, clamoring at the door, but they'll never get in, and they'll never get our secrets, and they'll never get our civilization that belongs to us. Like, you have these little guests come in, and you get to play with them like they're little exotic zoo animals, and like it's like maybe your kid will like. That is like a strength of diversity. I feel like this is like kind of what Libs low-key meant when they like made this argument. I'm like, that's kind of true. Like your kid, he gets exposed to new cultures, but like in like a petting zoo way, it's like totally safe, strictly minority, like an actual minority. Like you will never like be elected to office.
You will not replace.
You won't have a. Yeah, you will not. You will not replace us. But like when I go over to your house and we play video games together, I can be like, ew, what's that fucking smell? And then you could be like, oh, my mom is cooking this dish from our shithole country. Would you like some? And then you get to go, well, fuck it. Okay, I like this video game, so I'll stay at your house and I'll eat it. And then that's like diversity. Then you go home and you're like, oh, I'm like, diversity is our strength. Like,
and then you're
I ate
like,
this kid's mom's gross food.
Can you make tacos?
And it's like, it's like, there's nothing wrong with that. Like Mike Enoch is like, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. And it's like, that's kind of like, there is an argument you could make where like, I kind of agree with that in a way. Like, yeah, like you don't want to keep them in glass. That's like rude. So it's like, okay, here, you can have a house and your dad can like be, like a banker. And like, yeah, we'll let you be brown or whatever, like, and or we'll let you have weird looking eyes, and then people can ask. Like, isn't that how it felt when you were young? Like aside from black people, where you're like, oh my God, there's like way too many of these, I gotta go away. But like, aside from that, like that's kind of how the experience was,
Absolutely, that's how it was.